Well, I had some coffee late in the day at work, and so it's about 8:30 in the evening, and I'm still full of energy. So here I am. I'm going to talk to you about my first love, crocheting. I started this Afghan, probably about, 7 years ago. I go back to it every once in a while. I was introduced to crocheting when I was a little girl by my grandmother, my mother's mother. My father's mother also crocheted, but she wasn't an avid crocheter. I think a lot of the immigrant women did. And my grandparents were immigrants in this country from Italy. So my mother's mother did crocheting, knitting, tatting, embroidery, cross stitch, needlework, basically. My father's mother did a little bit of needlework, a little bit of crochet, but only for a short time. I don't think that bug bit her. Does that make sense? I do know that, it was very common among a lot of the immigrant women to do some type of sewing or needlework. And but my mother's mother did all the time. I remember her making us crocheted vests. During the celebration 1976 of the bicentennial, it was very popular to do, a lot of red, white, and blue accessories. So I remember she made us all red, white, and blue crocheted vests, and we wore them till they wore out. She used to make us crocheted slippers. Again, we would wear them till they wore out, that sort of thing. Just love them up, I guess, We always had a crocheted Afghan in the house made by her. My grandmother, my mother's mother, my maternal grandmother, died when I was just a little girl. I was about 11. But I was introduced to crochet by her. I didn't pick up the bug until years later after she died and after my father's mother died, my other grandma. And I wanted to start crocheting again. So I asked a good friend of mine, Sandy, I think I must have mentioned it to her that I wanted to pick up crocheting again. And she goes, well, why don't I talked to my mom. She can get you started. She does a lot of crocheting. So she reintroduced it to me. And I remember I made a chevron, which is the zigzag. And that was very typical, I got back to it again in my early 20s. But anyway, got back into it. It's always been my first love. Crocheted all the time, made family members, Afghans, and so on and so forth. And have always enjoyed it. And then, like I said, it will always be my first love. My passion is quilting. But a lot of the crocheting I do now is smaller projects, sort of like the hand crocheted hand towels, things of that nature, that are fast and easy. An Afghan can take 3-4 months if I work on it diligently, or like this one, several years, because I don't work on it as often as I should. I don't know who I originally intended this Afghan for, but okay, I'm gonna have to sort this through another day. You want to hear another story? when my ex-husband and I were dating, I would be sitting, he'd come over to visit, you know, in my house. I was living at home with my parents, and I'd be crocheting, and I'd get a knot, and he'd be like, well, here, I'll get the knot out. And he would sit there, for, I don't know, an hour, just getting that knot out of the mess, because when you're dating, that's what you do. All right, get myself situated. All right, so yeah, so crocheting's my first love, and normally I'm in bed, like asleep in bed by now, and it is, I don't know what time is it, 9 o'clock in the evening. I get up very, very early, so my bedtime is very early. But like I said, I had some coffee late in the afternoon at work, so here I am. The heck am I doing? Okay, Angela, you have to remember what you're doing. Oh, I think it's this way. Let me see if I can figure this out. Like I said, I haven't done this Afghan in several years, so I'm trying to, oops. Oh, no, don't lose it. So I'm trying to figure out the pattern again. Oh, I'm making a mess. Jeez. Oh, here we go. I got it. Okay, let me look at this. I think that'll work. Okay. But the thing about crochet is, it's like riding a bike. Once you learn it, that's it. Like you pick it up again. And you can almost look at the stitch like I'm doing, and without going back to the pattern, and still do that stitch. Relatively easy. You understand. This is a small shell. Just a small rippling shell. I think what I'll do next time is I'll plan this ahead of time, and then I can show you the stitch. How many crocheters are out there? Ask me if I knit. No. Here's the thing about knitting. I've had people say this: if you're going to learn to crochet and knit, learn knitting first, because it's harder. I think I agree with them, because I've tried knitting and I'm very stiff with those needles. I have to learn to relax. I think it would be easier to learn to knit first, because it is more difficult, and that way by the time you get to crocheting, it's probably like, oh, okay, I can do this, that sort of thing. I do remember as a child, I had a childhood friend who lived down the street. She knew how to knit because her grandmother taught her, and her grandmother lived with them. And it's funny how when you're doing something and you're talking, the memories come back. But anyway, she was in my house one day, and she brought over one of her Barbie dolls. And her Barbie doll had a knitted dress that she knitted because her grandma helped her. Her grandmother lived with them. And I had knitting needles in the house from my grandmother. Even though I didn't learn how to knit. We had them available though. So we had yarn laying around. So she actually taught me how to knit. And we sat there for an afternoon while she taught me how to knit. And it's interesting how one child can teach another child how to do something, and they can pick it up very quickly. But I never continued to knit after that. It was just something that we did while we were playing with our Barbie dolls. Kind of wish I'd kept that up. So crocheting is my first love. I made my friends all Afghans, and yeah, I made everybody Afghans. And then once I found quilting, well, let's see. First time I did quilting was 1991, the year before we got married, and I took a class. And it was a 6-block sampler class. And the way it was set up was each block taught you a different technique. And let's see, this was 1991, and each block, and you pieced it all by hand and appliqued all by hand. And then there were lattice strips in between each block. And then I remember the instructor saying, if you want, you can machine stitch the lattice strips because they're all long strips. And then she taught us how to sandwich the quilt top, the batting, and the backing. And I completed the quilt top, sandwiched it all together, but I didn't finish it until about, I think, 2 years later. I think I got discouraged because I was hand quilting it and it was taking so long. But I did end up finishing it. I still have that that quilt. And that was 1991 when I started that quilt, but I don't think I finished it until probably a couple years after we were married. But I did finish it. And then I didn't quilt again until 1999. And what happened was my father passed away in 1998. And a year later, I got the bug again to start quilting. And we were living in Columbus at the time. And there was a lovely shop just a few blocks away from our house. And I went in, little privately owned shop, and the owner, of course, was there. And I explained to her how, I wanted to learn how to make double Irish chain because I had gotten a book about how to make a double Irish chain. And she said, well, that's fantastic. She said, because I teach a class for beginners that teach you 4 different quilt patterns. And I think it was like a 4 or 6 week course. Anyway, how it worked was every week you met at the shop for the instruction, and it was all instructional. You sat, you watched her while she instructed you on how to do that particular block, and then you would go home, construct it, and then bring it back the following week and show everybody. And then she would instruct you for the following week of what to get done. And anyway, by the end of 6 weeks, you would have, I think, 3 or 4 quilt tops done. Let me think. We did rail fence, log cabin, double Irish chain. I think that was it. And then it was all, and she taught you all fast machine piecing techniques. And then at the end, we sandwiched them together. We had like a little show and tell, and then she showed us how to machine quilt. And been quilting ever since. That bug bit me. But it's interesting because I've often looked back and thought, what was it that got me to take another class? And I really think it was part of the grieving process. I really think I was still healing, a year later after, well, of course, after my father died. And I think that was sort of, it's funny, at the time you don't see it, but hindsight, I see it now. Quilting filled a void that crocheting couldn't fill for me. And it really helped with my, dealing with my father's death and, that void. He's always with me, always. So is my sister, so is my brother-in-law. They're always with me. And, I think a lot of you can relate to that if you've had a loss in your life. Have you found something to help you creatively, to help you, cope with what your particular loss is? Well, I'm still wide awake. This is crazy. I should be sleeping right now because I get up so early. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I think next time I make a video, I will show you this stitch, and I'll actually find the pattern so that I can share it and I can show it to you. I can try to angle the camera so that, you know, it's much more visible. Thanks for listening. Good night. If you enjoyed it, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe.